These Alex Cooper allegations and backlash, they're wild. Because you have some of her fans and others online alleging she is spreading propaganda after the normally not so political Call Her Daddy host had Kamala Harris on her show. With a number of people slamming Cooper on X, as well as in the comments of a teaser for the episode posted on the Call Her Daddy Instagram account, writing things like call her propaganda. Others claiming they're gonna stop listening to Call Her Daddy, condemning Cooper for veering into politics, and implying that the Harris campaign paid her off. Right in this is you have people saying that Cooper was biased because why wasn't she interviewing Trump as well? And this is you also had some critics taking aim at Harris, or saying why is she doing this rather than traditional media. But with all that said, Cooper for her part actually addressed much of the criticism against her first thing in the introduction to the full episode, explaining why she had Harris on the show.
As you guys know, I do not usually discuss politics or have politicians on this show because I want Call Her Daddy to be a place that everyone feels comfortable tuning in. Overall, my focus is women and the day-to-day issues that we face. So, I will be honest. I had been going back and forth with this decision for a while. To get involved or to not get involved. But at the end of the day, I couldn't see a world in which one of the main conversations in this election is women, and I'm not a part of it. I want to be so clear, since this isn't a one-sided conversation, we reached out to former President Donald Trump to come on the show. If he also wants to have a meaningful, in-depth conversation about women's rights in this country, then he is welcome on Call Her Daddy anytime.
Right, as Cooper indicated there, much of the discussion she had with Harris centered on women's issues like reproductive rights and abortion, sexual abuse and safety, as well as how Trump will impact women's rights. Right, she has a very female audience, women's issues are big to her, and she even noted, I'm not the person to ask fracking questions. Right, and with this episode, some of the most notable and widely shared moments came from discussions they had around abortion, like this clip where Cooper asked about a key moment from the Trump-Harris debate.
I do want to clarify something. In the debate, former President Trump claimed that some states are executing babies after birth. Can you just clarify?
That is not happening anywhere in the United States. It is not happening, and it's a lie. It's a bold-faced lie that he is suggesting that, can you imagine? Can you imagine? He is suggesting that women in their 9th month of pregnancy are electing to have an abortion? Are you kidding? That is so outrageously inaccurate, and it's so insulting.
As well as this connected moment from Harris.
Because here's the thing that's so messed up about this. Some of these people will say, well, but I do believe in exceptions. I believe that there should be an exception in terms of in the life of the mother. Okay, here, let's talk about this. This gets back to, again, practical application of policy. Okay, so you believe there's an exception that the person should receive abortion care if the life of the mother is at risk. You know what that means in practical terms? She's almost dead before you decide to give her care. What? So we're going to have public health policy that says a doctor, a medical professional, waits until you're at death's door before they give you care? That's outrageous that anybody would be saying that that is acceptable policy.
Cooper also asking Harris to respond to comments Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders made last week, where she criticized Harris for not having biological kids. And with that, saying that Harris, quote, doesn't have anything keeping her humble, to which Harris said,
I don't think she understands that there are a whole lot of women out here who, one, are not aspiring to be humble. And I think it's really important for women to lift each other up. We have our family by blood, and then we have our family by love. And I have both. And I consider it to be a real blessing. And I have 2 beautiful children, Cole and Ella, who call me Mamala. We have a very modern family.
Right, but with all that, while there was backlash against Cooper and Harris, there was also a ton of support. Right, many cheering Cooper on for using her platform to talk about important issues, especially for women. Some also saying that the interview itself was really meaningful and impactful. And others also hitting back at those who criticize Harris for going on Call Her Daddy by noting just how massive of a reach the podcast has. Right, and not just when compared to more mainstream media outlets, but especially with key voter bases that Harris absolutely needs to win, particularly young women who aren't necessarily politically active. Right, and I mean, according According to Spotify last year, Call Her Daddy was the platform's second most listened to podcast, not just in the US, but globally as well, with it trailing only the Joe Rogan Experience in both categories. And it's also been reported that Call Her Daddy was the most listened to podcast among women last year as well, with Cooper herself previously saying after she first signed her big Spotify deal that she thinks around 90% of her fans now are women. And other outlets finding that her primary audience is 18 to 29 years old. Also, I just gotta throw this in here. If you had no problem with Donald Trump going on Logan Paul's podcast, chopping it up with the Nelk boys, letting Aiden Ross do tricks on it while he was live, but you have a problem with this, you're criticizing this, you're a fucking hypocrite. Donald Trump is very smart to go where key audiences are listening, especially key audiences that are not inclined to listen to mainstream media. So why would Kamala Harris or Tim Walz not do the exact same thing? Especially because I think in this election, the thing that is going to move the needle, it's a very highly contested race. The thing that's gonna move the needle is being on all fronts, not just TV ads and the money going there, going to where people are actually talking and listening. I mean, it's part of the reason the richest fucking man in the world bought Twitter. There's always all these articles about Elon Musk and Twitter, and they're like, oh my God, the valuation, it's so low now compared to when he bought it. It was never about him making money, it was about control. He has bolstered and rallied the right. Over the weekend, he was on stage jumping up like Donald Trump's most goodest boy. I woke up and opened X, and the first 5 things I got were Elon Musk tweets that were about politics and an ad, all of which are also things that Musk and his crew would have crucified other people like Zuckerberg or Jack for doing in the past. But all of that is to say there are a number of reasons all this faux outrage, it's fucking silly. But also, going back to Kamala, right, she's not stopping with Call Her Daddy now. She also appeared on 60 Minutes last night. Later this week, she's set to sit down with Stephen Colbert, Howard Stern, and The View. Meanwhile, Tim Walz is set to appear on Jimmy Kimmel, as well as going on the Smartless podcast. And all of this is to be expected, right? Both campaigns right now are on a full media blitz. We are just 29 days away from the election. And so in addition to once again telling you to go to vote.org, vote.gov, make sure you're register to vote if you're not, that is especially true today if you live in any of these states, starting with the swing states Arizona and Georgia, and continuing with Florida, Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio. Today is the last day to register to vote, so make sure you're registered. People get removed from the rolls all the time. And if you're not already or you got removed somehow, register to vote. Because the 2 things we always say on this: 1, disregard all the polls. The only polling that matters is on election day. And 2, I get wanting to check out. It's fucking exhausting. But while you may not fuck with politics, politics will fuck with you. So be a part of it and vote.